All right, here we are. We're gonna get this started. Got my first stream going. Can't wait to talk to Vin. Got Jermaine. I'm gonna bring on too in a few minutes, but let's go ahead and kick it off so we can. Hey Vin, how you doing?
Hey, good to see you, buddy.
You too. How you been?
Pretty good. You're all fancy.
This is amazing. I'm still learning. I'm gonna be learning it throughout this whole stream. So if I'm clicking stuff and doing things, try not to pay attention to me too much. But yeah, just
Modern technology, baby.
amazing. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, and little intro, little bio. So just let everybody know what you're about and what you got going on. Let them know about your channel that you have and everything.
Yeah, we got a. Yeah, I guess we got a channel. I'm Vin. Let me see. Fun fact about me: I was born in Jamaica. Immigrated here at around 3 or 4. I was actually kidnapped. Actually, really interesting stuff growing up. I've grown up a Christian my entire life. I had an attempted apostasy around 15, 16 years old. To about 15 to 18, I attempted to apostatize from Christianity, but I failed miserably. I married to Sori, and she's around here in the room, like digging around. Maybe we can get her on. I'm not sure. And once in a while,
Hey, what's up?
Hey there.
Once in a while, we review music and all that jazz. So that's pretty much it.
I have seen that. Y'all are awesome on that. By the way, I love watching those.
Appreciate it.
Y'all are into the metal stuff like me.
Yeah. I'm a big. That's actually, I picked up metal during my my period of attempted apostasy from Christianity. I was trying to. I didn't really have access to a lot of metal at the time, so Marilyn Manson was as hard as I could get, or as satanic as I could get. That's probably one of the reasons I was such an incompetent apostate. Because I didn't have enough access to apostate material.
No Norwegian death metal or anything?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about Norway.
I still never got into that stuff either. It was always kind of I was always on the lighter side of the metal spectrum. I was always I was a big Mudvayne fan. That's about as hard as I ever went.
LD50 is one of the most underrated records of all time. I still listen to it almost every day.
I was a bass player for years, and Ryan Martini is probably like one of the most insane players to watch, and I can watch him play bass all day.
Yeah. They definitely had their own sound, and at the time, everybody was like sounding like Korn or Slipknot. They had their own style. I respect the hell out of Mudvayne.
Yeah, so let's I guess we can go ahead and get in. We got Jermaine. He's going to come on in a little bit, and we're going to see what kind of conversations we get into. But we're just doing this off the cuff, just going with the flow and seeing what's fun to talk about. So what kind of topics have you been interested in lately, as far as theology and things like that?
Well, actually, infectious disease control, believe it or not, is a big topic for me. And then the relationship between the government, there's a strange phenomena where Christians are talking about how persecuted they're being because the government's telling them to not gather and not worship and not share the same cup during communion and all this jazz. And somehow this turns into Christian persecution. So I've been very fascinated by that. And I'm very fascinated with the right wing of evangelicalism because I was born and raised in it. Although my mom was a giant Clinton person, so I shouldn't say I was born and raised in it, but pretty much after 9/11, I was very far right, and so I joined that subculture. Say it that way. But now, as you grow and you think things through, I think I've been booted out of the right wing of evangelicalism for about a couple of years. So yeah, I've been very fascinated about that. The persecution complex that Christians are displaying in this particular situation.
Oh, absolutely. It's always seen on Facebook lately and things like that, and it's just nothing but protests and people worried about their rights.
Yeah, and it's a very it's always been sort of reading Plato's Republic or whatever, the relationship between the individual and the collective, and rights versus responsibilities, and bodily autonomy, and all those things, and what the limitations are, how much the government can tell you what to do, and then looking at all that from a biblical perspective. I mean, for me, for example, this is a love your neighbor issue, right? Like, so you and I, not that we're immune at all, but we're generally young men in relatively decent shape. So if we were to get hit with this thing, we'd be okay. I'm pretty sure for the most part. But there are people in our community and your community, I'm sure, that if they were to get infected would not be okay. And so to me, it's pretty simple. It's a love your neighbor issue. If I'm doing something that I know has a inordinately high percentile of fatality ratio for my neighbor, then I'm going to try to not do that for the sake of my neighbor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so for Christians to turn this into the government is persecuting us, the mark of the beast, blah, blah, blah. I've done a lot of thinking of it, probably too much thinking of it. And I have a couple theories. But
do you think evangelicals sometimes will almost look for any reason to say they're persecuted just so they can give them a reason to do that?
Well, 100. Look, Jesus said, and Paul said in the New Testament, that you're going to be persecuted. But evangelicals in America don't really live lives that are worthy of any persecution. Most people can get along with a standard evangelical. If you look at the New Testament, see the stuff that Jesus was doing, the Apostle Paul, these guys were doing things that put them in real danger and made people really want to kill them. American Christians, for the most part, it's, you have your little job, you're in your nice suburban little hideout, you go to church on Sunday, you get lectured to for about a half an hour, you sing a couple songs, and then you go home. And that does not reflect the lifestyle that you saw in the New Testament. So we're not getting any genuine persecution. So my running theory right now is that we invent things to be persecuted by so that we could say that we're authentic, like the Christians that you see in the New Testament or Christians that you hear about in China.
Everybody just has the need to feel special when something's going on that affects everyone. Some groups will try to distinguish themselves and kind of don't forget about me today kind of thing.
100%.
It's I've been every now and then. I don't usually comment too much on politics. I see some every now and then, but some things are just so demonstrably ridiculous that sometimes I can't help myself, and I'll have to dive into the comment section. I usually regret it about 10 minutes in, because the person literally will type a 3-page essay, and none of it'll make sense, and none of it'll have any periods or punctuation. So I'll spend about 30 minutes trying to figure out what they said, 30 minutes trying to figure out how to respond to it in words that they might understand. But it's amazing the lack of self-awareness that people have, because they say, well, they should be able to protest, and well, absolutely, you should be able to protest whatever you want. That doesn't mean you should carry an AR-15 to the state capitol and demand to get into the door. And it's kind of amazing, because the same people that I can pretty much guarantee, the same people that are saying that this is their right and this is peaceful, this is a protest. If we and I'm sure you're going to be in agreement with this, if this were an African American man doing this, walking up to the steps of the Capitol, you probably wouldn't get very far.
Yeah, send the Black Panthers out there loaded with the AR-15s to go.
Right.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those very, very strange things where I'm sure you've seen the meme where Kaepernick is kneeling, and the next clip has the president calling him the son of a bitch and he should be fired and all that. But then you got these crazy people showing up with their AR-15s, and Trump saying, "Oh, these are good people. They have the right to protest." Yada yada yada.
Well, if Kaepernick had a MAGA hat on and brought his bulletproof vest to the field, I'm sure it would have been fine.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah. So, and here's my thing about the protests, right? Like, on the one hand, I would never recommend it, and anybody that I loved, I would tell to stay far away from it because I don't like that type of energy. However, during 9/11, if everybody remembers, the government, passed the USA Patriot Act and all that due to the, war on terrorism, and they abused the hell out of that Patriot Act. And it wasn't just Bush; it went all the way to Obama. Obama had that, scandal with Verizon where they were, listening in on, certain demographics of people that did not fit the terrorism profile. These were, right-winger Tea Party people that Obama was using the Patriot Act to go and violate their rights. Some of the stuff that Snowden revealed or whatever. So our government has demonstrated that I don't believe that they, Sorry to this day believes that the government was behind 9/11. Like, and then you've got other elements now who are this big conspiracy that this is created by Bill Gates so that people have to get vaccinated because the anti-vaxxers. And if you're an anti-vaxxer, no disrespect, I'm just saying. Like, there's all these weird theories, right? But here's what I'll say about the protests. See, the one good little silver lining I can get out of it. Our government has demonstrated, especially since 9/11, whenever there's a major national crisis, that they will use it to take power and money. So it happened in 9/11. It happened in the 2008 housing crisis, where all these giant banks and whatever got bailed out. And then after the crisis is over, the guy that just took a $80 billion bailout gives himself a $20 million bonus. And now the fear is, now that we're allowing the government to tell us to shelter in place or whatever, they're going to take the power that we're giving them now and practice massive overreach for the next decade, like what happened with the Patriot Act. And so these people see themselves as a stopgap from that. And I think it's a very clunky, disheveled way of going about it, but I can see something of a silver line if it makes our government kind of pause and say, okay, maybe we can't screw with people's freedom to this degree, because there's always this balance between security and freedom. And I don't think that anybody has a perfect balance of it. So as long as nobody gets hurt, but of course, there's no way to know that nobody's going to get hurt, right?
Well, that's the problem. I mean, if you bring a semi-automatic rifle to a protest, you're almost you've definitely upped the ante there. It's definitely increased the danger of someone getting hurt.
Do you remember that Bundy thing, the Bundy Ranch situation? These guys had a standoff with the police. Like, this happened about 4 or 5 years ago.
I remember the one that was further back than that. I can't remember the name of it.
That was the Waco one. That's what.
No, that was talking about the something Ridge, maybe.
Well, that was Ruby Ridge.
Ruby Ridge, yes, I remember that one.
But yeah, so the Bundy Ranch standoff, that was in 2014. So let me just read this to you because it was crazy. The 2014 Bundy standoff was an armed confrontation between supporters of cattle rancher Cliven Bundy and law enforcement following a 21-year legal dispute in which the United States Bureau of Land Management obtained court orders directing Bundy to pay over $1 million in withheld grazing fees for Bundy's use of federally owned land adjacent to Bundy's ranch in northwestern Nevada. So Bundy goes, I'm not paying y'all nothing. So then the feds start showing up at this guy's place to confiscate his land. And then he put his, he cited him up. His family was all caged up. And then people from all over the country, like militia, I knew a couple of them personally. They got in their cars or got on the plane, went down to the ranch, and were training their weapons and the government backed down.
Yeah, that's
And then about 6 months later, I think it was the HRT group in the FBI killed him on camera.
What?
Yeah, I was in the airport I had just got back from a trip, and I look at my phone, and there it is. Like, there's Clive and Bundy, and HRT guys lit him up. Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
wow, yeah,
Yeah, man.
it's that's one of those things where it's like if you we deal with the escalation of force kind of thing. You know, it's who is the
100%.
one trying to escalate things.
100%.
And right now, it's obviously the protesters that they're almost hoping that
They're
they get involved in
agitating.
a firefight.
They're agitating.
I think they want that to happen so that
Well,
they can say that they're. We told you they were trying to persecute us. We told you they wanted us silenced.
100%. They want to agitate and foment that type of unrest. They want those conflicts with the federal government. I mean, there's a pretty, I don't know, scary is a word, but capable militia subculture in Maine. And yeah, you listen to their rhetoric. They it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. If you talk to any of the guys in the local militia here, if you talk to them directly, they'll tell you, oh no, this is not about conflict. This is just about supplementing the Army, kind of like the Army Reserve. And there's a difference between government and personal, blah, blah, blah. So they'll all tell you individually that they're not trying to foment anything. But then when they get together and they think that you're part of the crew and they're just start talking, it doesn't sound like that.
Well, it becomes very obvious who the instigators are when they're actually going to the government buildings.
100%.
You're not coming to my door. I'm just like the government isn't coming to your door. 100%. You're going to theirs.
100%.
So, but yeah, I just really the Kaepernick meme was one of those things that really was like, wait a minute, you know, y'all don't understand, because it must be nice to be able to walk to a government building in a bulletproof vest and military gear, carrying an assault rifle, and not have to worry about a thing.
Yeah, well, you know, in Maine, like you kind of have to argue to people that white privilege exists because they don't understand what you mean when you say it. But that's an example.
Oh, I got into a conversation yesterday with somebody who's just completely tone deaf about it. I talking about the white privilege thing, and oh man, I can't remember what the original. We got talking about Trump, and I mentioned, you know, it's like they call Trump a racist. I was like, well, because he is. If you make racist comments, it was like, name one racist comment he made. I pulled up the video of him saying that the Mexican judge, wasn't fit to rule in the case, the Trump University case, because because Trump was building a wall. It's like, well, how is that racist? Are you? If you say someone's unqualified to do their job because of their ethnicity, what do you call that?
Yeah.
If I say you can't do this job because you're white, is that racist? Yes.
See, this is the thing that gets me about Trump supporters, and you know, I've got a friend who was working for Bernie Sanders, like literally working for him, conference calls, whole 9 yards. And because of what me and Sori do, where, you know, you meet the most interesting people on the planet. So this girl was working on the Sanders campaign. And then because of Bernie's horrible just mishandlings and capitulations, and the last straw for her was what the Democrats did in New York City, where they took Bernie off the ballot. Bernie explicitly stated, I'm suspending my campaign, but I'm staying on the ballot because I want to generate enough delegates in order to put some real pressure on this guy. Right. So he stated that in his concession speech, that was his plan. So then New York gets up, that New York has 247 delegates up for grabs. It's a delegate rich state, and they take Bernie off. So, and of course, Bernie does nothing to fight it. Andrew Yang actually has to throw up the lawsuit Bernie won't even do it. And so she went off the deep end and said she was voting for Trump. And I was like,
wow.
Whoa. Vote Green Party. Pencilin Jill Stein or John Anthony. Do not vote for Trump. But, you know, that's the thing that gets me about Trump supporters, is that I think the left has not done a very good job of really profiling what an actual Trump supporter looks like and why they are the way that they are. Now, granted, there's definitely a lot of ignorant, people who are, hateful and fill in the blank phobic on the Trump side for sure. But there's also a bunch of disaffected progressives who feel pretty slighted by their party over the last 2 election cycles. And I think that the DNC clearly demonstrated with the Biden pick that they would rather lose to Trump than win with Bernie. I think Bernie is my perception of Bernie was that he was an actual populist, whereas Trump was very good at populist rhetoric. Bernie was actually an actual populist who has been a populist since before it was cool. And so I thought Bernie was a once in a lifetime candidate, because when else are we going to get a guy that's been saying the same thing for the last 30 or 40 years on really significant topics? And so I got to tell you, I was pretty bummed about how the primaries went this time around. And I've been disaffected myself as far as electoral politics goes. Bernie came out about a week and a half ago and said, if you don't vote for Biden, you're being irresponsible. So he's playing the good soldier line and all this. And I'm not very hopeful for November.
I've pretty much resigned myself to Trump winning again. That's kind of, I'm still going to go vote for Biden, and I'm still going to, I'm of the mindset that not voting for Biden is a 2-way vote swing.
Yeah.
Because it's a 2-vote swing, because not only is Biden not getting a vote, you're not canceling out a Trump vote. And it's so you've essentially given a 2-vote swing in that area.
Yeah, Noam Chomsky said the same thing, and Noam Chomsky has forgotten more about politics than we'll ever know.
Absolutely.
But I get it.
It's definitely I got into the whole Trump discussion every now and then. Like I said, I don't know much about the politics. I really don't. I have family. I'm working. I think I don't have time to keep up with it, and I don't really feel confident commenting on things that I don't know anything about.
I'm with you. That's why I haven't said much about the virus.
Yeah, but as every now and then you'll just see something that's like, well, Trump's not racist. Well, okay, let's you might say someone's not. No one is one thing. You can't say a person is one thing, but he has definitely made racist comments and isn't afraid to do it. Well, and he doesn't worry about it. He's like, I'm not even gonna parse out what I'm about to say before I say it, because I don't care what comes out of my own mouth.
Yeah,
and it's that level of just indifference that's almost the worst thing about it. It's not even the things he says; it's the fact that he doesn't care what he says.
Yeah, and his audience. It's almost like a prison system where you get your stripes by how horrible you can be as a person, right? Like if you're in a gang or you're in prison, you get stripes because you do horrible things to people. And so the more horrible Trump speaks, the more credibility it gives him from his base. Which on the one hand, again, is a very, I like what you said. Nobody's one thing, right? But I think all of us knows that people are, there are certain traits that dominate their personality, though, right?
Oh,
so
yes.
If you call somebody a racist, what we're saying is, I know he could be nice to cats, and he might even have a Hispanic maid, okay? But and sure, he'll be nice to a black cat. We get it. But just look over and when I think about racism, especially in the political sphere, my line has always been all black people have ever had to choose from were racists. You're going to tell me that Richard Nixon wasn't a racist? And, there's a lot of documents coming out next year about Martin Luther King, and we can talk about how he ended up getting assassinated. Hey, 2021, 1/1/2021, initiate a FOIA request, and then you'll see. So my thing is, okay, who is, and this is another misstep of the Democratic Party that so here's my thing, right? If I was in the DNC, I'd say, okay, there's no way in the hell that Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump. Trump is going to eviscerate him on the debate stage. Not because Trump is way smarter than Biden, but because Trump knows how to manipulate the camera and get attention and make you look crazy. So if I was the DNC, I'd say, you know what? Let's forfeit the executive branch and win the House and win the Senate, right? So we'll give the Republicans the executive branch, and then we'll win the House and the Senate so that we can block or veto any crazy action that he wants to. It's like what you saw after the 2018 vote with Nancy Pelosi ended up being the Speaker of the House, and then he wanted all this money for the wall, and she blocked him with every. So, like, that's a very good strategy, right? Say, okay, well, Biden's not going to win, so let's win the House and the Senate. They're not putting any money toward that. They're not putting any money toward the down ballot voting. All they're doing is focusing on Biden. And It's like, are you kidding me? And now this stuff that came out yesterday about Michael Flynn with the FBI, they're going to use that like crazy to win the House and the Senate. I think Trump is going to come out of 2020 with the House, and he's going to have a supermajority. And if you thought stuff was bad now, you wait.
Right.
You wait till this man has a supermajority, and there's nothing anybody can do to stopgap this guy.
Right. It's at the point now where if there's if there's nothing that he's done so far that can sway his supporters' opinions, there's nothing he can do. There's literally nothing he can do at this point to make himself look bad.
Yeah.
Because if you made yourself look as bad as possible, and it's still not working, and it still doesn't do anything, why bother trying to be better?
100% correct.
But yeah, so let's see. I want to bring Jermaine on. He's been waiting, but we'll get into some Christian atheist things and see where that goes. Let me bring Jermaine on here.
All that jazz. Yeah, I'm with it. Let's go.
Oh,
Big homie.
Jermaine.
What's happening?
How you doing?
What's going on, beautiful? I haven't seen you in a long time, bro.
I know. I'm good. I'm actually studying I was studying for a test, so I was.
You're gonna ace it. You're gonna ace. You don't need to study.
Hopefully. I don't know, man. This COVID-19, it's weird going from in class to online. So yeah, pretty annoying. So I don't know. I'll try. We'll see.
How's everybody doing with the? Because I know you're social distancing, Jermaine. You don't have a flak jacket. You're not out there with your AR-15 protesting, are you?
No. I'm at home, and I have not had. So the only time I have social contact is probably like once every couple of weeks when I go grocery shopping. That's it.
How is it affecting you? Is it? Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an extrovert. So it sucks, but I get the point of it. Can't do anything about it, right? I think the worst thing is just that so I moved to Richmond, and one of the benefits is that I'm really close to my grandparents, but I can't see them. So that's the worst part of it for me, honestly.
It's a gut punch.
Yeah, but I talk to them on the phone and stuff like that. So I don't know. I get the point of it because I would hate for something to happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not bad. My wife, she actually works though. She's essential. She works in a vaccine lab. So her job, she's
part of the conspiracy.
Yeah. So when her job closed, then I'm like, okay, it's serious. But no, she's doing her thing right now. So
yeah, neither me. I was off for about 3 weeks, and then my wife's kept working the entire time, and we actually got lucky on that one. So but it's I've completely heard the horror stories about people who can't work or even just completely gotten fired.
Yeah.
But so
I know a lot of people who are doing stuff in the food industry and stuff, and they can't really. Well, I think they're trying to transition. So I have a friend, her family, they own a restaurant and stuff, but they're doing stuff to more online, or not online, but takeout orders. So it hit them, but they're not as bad, but business is still kind of not too good. So I could understand why people want things to reopen, but I think that they they're just not really thinking about I don't know. It depends on your goal, right? So if your goal is to save the most amount of people as possible, you would do a quarantine. But if your goal is the economy, then you would think that a quarantine is not the best solution. So I think the right answer is somewhere in between two. So I don't even get into it.
It's a difficult balance because everybody's noted that the domestic violence, suicide, child abuse stuff, all those stats have gone up pretty high.
Yeah.
And people are attributing that to
we're stressed out. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have any money. And then you've got this dude and his wife who had this routine for 10 years. and now they're glommed together, and the guy can't deal with the stress, and he does a scumbag thing and starts beating the hell out of his wife. I mean, that's why I thought you brought up the complexity, Jermaine, of the economy versus the the viral nature of this thing. And it's like, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because if you completely wreck the economy, then and X million people are out of a job, and like in the housing crisis, you had, I think 5.1 million people lost their homes as these big banks were getting bailed out, and that's what precipitated the Occupy Wall Street movement, which was relatively peaceful. Most of the altercations that happened during Occupy Wall Street were initiated actually by the government, the local government authorities. So it was relatively a bloodless sort of protest. But I think after this one, with the bailout that happened, if they don't do something different where you have 5 million plus people losing their homes again in 2020, I think you're going to see another Occupy movement, but it's not going to be nonviolent. I think the folks in Michigan just demonstrated that, to some degree.
It's one of those things now. We just came up on the first of the month, and a lot of people who were already barely making their rent, barely making their bills last month, have nothing because we have an unemployment system that's broken and nobody can get through on that. I think what all this has done is it's exposed really how much of a thread we were balanced on as a country the entire time.
Yeah.
Because now
situation. I think it's interesting because I'm a scientist, and I think that I try to find answers in it, but a lot of these questions, they don't have clear-cut answers that it's just okay, you can find this answer by looking at this equation, or this, you can't find it with this. So I think, I don't know, a lot of these moral issues, it requires it's not very, I don't know, it's not as simple as people think it is. I think a lot of people are just well, it's as simple as just leave the economy open, you're fine. But it's not as simple as that. It's also not as simple as let's quarantine until everyone's good. So
we're up to what, 60,000 dead?
Yeah, it's so you heard about Sweden, right? So Sweden, because they had a different system, right? So they let everyone open. They let it open. They didn't close anything, and now they have less deaths. But as a result of it, a lot of people ended up dying. So, but they have more deaths in Sweden than all the other the other Nordic countries around it who did quarantine. So it brings this interesting question of is it better to quarantine, whereas you kind of slow down your economy, or is it better to let people kind of just do their thing, but you're going to have to risk people dying. So it's really where your end goals are at the end of it.
But does Sweden have I wonder what kind of social safety nets are in place for things like that already in Sweden.
Than here.
Yeah, so, I mean that's we're really seeing why the lack of universal health care, lack of universal safety nets and social services and things like that. Why they're needed, because it's fine to not need them and everything. We spend decades and a century being fine, and then when something like this happens, now we realize why we should have had that the entire time. But everybody else figured it out before us.
Yeah, most definitely. It's a lot now you see why universal healthcare is very important, because a lot of people probably have COVID-19, and the death could be more, but a lot of them aren't reported, right? So a lot of people aren't going to the hospitals and different things like that. How many people could have had healthcare and could have maybe even had life-saving healthcare but didn't do it? So now is really where you're just maybe universal healthcare is kind of might have a point to it there.
And the big homie, Joe Biden, said he would still veto a Medicare for all bill if he was the president, and it hit his desk. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I was actually listening when you guys were talking about Joe Biden before, and John, you were saying you're going to vote for Biden. I'm the same way. I'm going to vote for him just for the sake of hopefully if RGB, I just want to say. And when she retires, or if something ever happens, I don't want it to be in the hands of Trump. So that's my only real reason for voting. But do I really care about Biden that much? Come on, he's not that different from Trump, really.
Oh yeah, I mean it's what is it? The South Park episode is, do you want a giant douche or a shit sandwich?
A shirt sandwich.
You have to pick one. Well, we don't have to pick one, but in a sense, it's one of them is actively trying to change the Constitution in a negative way, and so far the other, I haven't seen that level of almost complete disregard for people's rights.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, Trump. It's I said before, like it's obvious that the DNC would much rather lose to Trump than win with Bernie. Bernie would have changed the entire landscape of the Democratic Party, in much the same way that Trump did with the Republican Party. And I think, the kingmakers in the DNC didn't want to cede that power, so now we've got Biden, who this is something I don't know. My wife and I probably disagree on. I'm not really a fan of mocking Biden's mental decline. I think it's a very, very sad thing to see, especially when you look at him like just 4 years ago to now. He's obviously declined mentally, and but my wife basically says, look, this dude is trying to get the most powerful seat in the world, and he knows good and well that he's not qualified to do it. But being the president has always been Joe Biden's it's been a big dream of his. That's obvious. And I think now he thinks it's his time, in spite of the fact that he's clearly not. I mean, does anybody think that these debates are going to go well?
Oh,
Trump and Biden?
Did you see some of the Trump attack ads against Biden recently? Like, he doesn't even have to try. Like, there was this one Biden ad or is the attack against Biden, but all it is just like Biden talking about like little kids playing with his leg hair. And like Trump doesn't say anything in the whole thing. And it's just like black people looking at it. I mean, they're like digitally imposed, but I'm just like, words in there. Like, it's not going to be fair. Like Trump, even though Trump, I don't like him at all, but he's really good at trolling. Like, that's his thing. So you put him against Biden, it's not going to work well.
You guys know me and like the technicals of debate and all this. Hillary Clinton, okay? Now, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton at all. I'm just saying in 2016, Hillary Clinton had the best streak of debating I'd ever seen.
Yeah, she's a good
including her one-on-ones with Bernie. She did a really, really good job. Sharpest, most agile mind, very quick on her feet. And when you look at those debates substantially between her and Trump, it wasn't even close. Yeah. But Trump is a game show host, and he understands not only his audience, but most of America. So all those debates that happened between Hillary and Trump, the only thing anybody remembers from 4 years ago was Hillary saying, I'm very glad that somebody with your disposition is not going to be in the White House. And then Trump responds by saying, you'd be in jail.
Yeah.
And that's the only line anybody remembers from the debate 4 years ago. And so my thing is, if a brilliant, very adept debater like Hillary Clinton can get undone because of Trump's antics, how in the world is Joe Biden going to be able to stand a chance against this dude?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not, because people, yeah, you're right. People don't remember the other things. Like, nobody looks at Hillary and Trump and thinks like, oh yeah, she really pointed out his flaws or his fallacies or something like that. People just remember the sound bites. So
we've gotten to this point. Yeah, we've gotten to this point where it's reality TV has bled over into into what we call the real world. Now there is no line anymore, and people are more entertained by someone who is just better at getting under someone's skin than they are at actually doing their job. It's we can piss off the liberals. Oh, he really gets under their skin. He really makes them mad, and that's why we want him there. It's incredible to me that like I said, we have a reality show game show host as our president. We've really lost all credibility in the world. There's no reason for any American right now to be proud of what we have. Yeah. It's like, look, just try not to judge us too harshly during this time. We're not all this bad.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it spans more than politics too. I think like a lot of times the easy answer is the answer that's favored. And I think, because I know it like doing a lot of debates, and I'm sure you two see it also when it comes to like people, in even the realms of theism and atheism, a lot of times like the answer that you have to think about more is a lot of times like the answer that people aren't going to go for, when it comes to like morality or something like that. Someone's saying like, oh, well, how do you know this unless a guy tells you? Is not a good argument, because you're saying like, well, I don't have to think about this answer if I have a God. And it doesn't, I'm not saying necessarily this is an argument for or against God. I'm just saying like a lot of times like we don't want to think about those hard answers. If someone says like evolution isn't true because I haven't looked into evolution. So I think that's just a product of our culture where we don't want to look at the really complex answers because it's not as easy to do so. And Trump is just a symptom. He's not a disease.
It's very reassuring and peaceful to feel like we know things.
Yeah,
it really is. And if we can feel like, and we see this a lot, people feel like they know things, but they don't. And it's very much on display when you actually say, when you get down to, like you said, the why. Why is that? Why do you think that? Well, give me some examples, things like that. And then it's no, I don't want to do that. I just believe it.
I'll give you guys one example. I hosted a radio show a couple years ago, and this was when Obama was. So this is 2016. So you remember the Never Trump movement, and so I took the position that we as Christians shouldn't support anybody on the Republican side. You had Ted Cruz, who was talking about carpet bombing the Middle East. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
And I said, guys, that's a war crime. Like, it's nothing like it's not like I'm saying this is not nice to do. I'm like, this is a war crime, and we're supposed to be pro-life. So he's out. Well, that didn't go very well, and then they started talking about, no, we need somebody who's going to be tough on immigration because, and at the time, the conspiracy theory was that Obama was letting in all these immigrants, these illegal immigrants, because they're a voting bloc. They're going to vote Democrat, and this secures, a Democratic president for the next 50 years or whatever. That was a big conspiracy.
Well, I need the Kenyan too, so. Yeah.
and so the guy says to me, Obama refuses to prosecute any of these illegals, and he's letting them in. Meanwhile, if you go to anybody in California, Obama's nickname to this day is the deporter in chief. Obama deported more people than Clinton and Bush combined. So, but there was this giant meme in the Republican right-wing Christian side that Obama was letting in all these people, and then Trump jumped on it. And, that's his first discussion was about, immigrants and how horrible Mexicans were and yada, yada, yada. And everybody just bit it and you couldn't convince them otherwise because Fox News said it. Tucker said
it was what was the thing he said? He wanted to, when he talked about the wall and everything. Everybody's MS-13. Everybody that's coming in is carrying 50 pounds of cocaine with them.
100%.
And he said, yeah, we can do that. Well, because Obama was a big proponent of the catch and release system. Was what Trump called it, catch and release.
Yeah.
No one else I don't remember anybody else calling it that.
Yeah, let's talk about human beings like they're animals.
Right. It was he was the one that did that, but he said, but then he went on to say that you let them go and then they never show up to their court date, but then all you got to do is pull up the actual facts, and it's like something where like 98% show up to every court date they have.
Yeah.
So it's
including underage children, by the way. I don't know if people know this, but in these courts, you got little 7-year-old Pedro who has to stand up and represent himself along with an attorney. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff down there.
Right. It's we don't run a big fan of rights for people unless it's our own people. It's we like to get behind it. We like to get behind people having due process only if it's our own little tribe that we have. As long as you were born here, as long as you came here legally and all that thing, but it's really fun. But it's fun to pick on them about it, but it's also scary in a way because it's like you said, you can't convince them otherwise. As soon as Trump said, "Oh, they never show up to court and they're all MS-13," that means every person coming from anywhere south of the border is a gang member. That's
it, and that's how you get these militia that show up at the border. They're armed and all that craziness. Like I think that's the biggest sort of disconnect that I have with Trump supporters is there are times when his rhetoric has resulted in people literally being killed. So one example would be, I don't know if you guys remember this, before the 2018 primaries, you had the whole migrant caravan situation. So these people in these destabilized South American countries make this trip to the border to seek asylum, which is completely within their rights to do. And Trump started talking about these are invaders. He started using this line, invader, 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 invader. And he was using these people as a prop to influence people in the 2018 primaries. And then what ends up happening, or midterm election, sorry. What ends up happening? There's a synagogue in Pennsylvania that was doing relief work for these people at the border. And one of these right-wing nut jobs gets on Twitter. Guy gets on Twitter and says, I'm not going to stand. This isn't verbatim, but it's pretty close. I'm not going to stand by while my country gets attacked by invaders. Screw your optics. I'm going in. And then he goes to the synagogue and blows away a bunch of people.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I mean, it's just like the guy that sent those bombs to like the, Trump enemies, right? He sent it
100%.
To, he sent the packages to like different people. And then Trump himself didn't do it, but it's his rhetoric that kind of emboldens that kind of talk.
I mean, the guy literally used his phraseology. So I'm like, hey.
You can only see your enemy so many times before somebody decides to take it on their own hands, right?
Yeah, and people are like, well, the guy was crazy. He was already on the edge. We know he was on the edge.
Yeah.
But we would like our president not to be the guy that tips him over on the wrong side.
Yeah.
That's the point.
That gets back to exactly what I was saying. I look at Biden, I look at Trump, and I can say at least Biden will possibly consider the effects his words might have before he says them.
If he remembers
but he's not going to say stupid stuff.
But at least maybe he might defer to a speechwriter once in a while, or instead of just let me just go out here and go off the cuff and just say whatever I feel.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
I mean, you can see in the most recent broadcast he's been on, he's always looking down because they're tethering him to the speechwriting. That's for sure.
But I remember it. I can't remember exactly when it was, and it might have been right around the same time as the caravan or whatever it was. I'm from originally from Alabama. I'm from Birmingham. I was raised there, and I was a musician up there for a while and around Alabama area. And there was a I've been so through Facebook I've become friends with a lot of people that just through other musicians and things like that I may not have really ever met or anything, but just for people I know. So we'll be friends on Facebook or something like that. But I came across. I came across a story that being shared about one of the guys. I recognized his name. I knew a couple of bands he'd played with and things like that. And he had gone on Facebook, and this was from USA Today. They were sharing this story from USA Today. So that's how far it had reached at this point, where he had made some social media posts about how he would be glad to go sit on the border and pick off people trying to cross the border, women, children. It didn't matter.
Dang.
And I was. And then of course there was the huge backlash, rightfully so. I mean, people were actually within the musician community, the bands with a little more pull, I guess, a little more influence with a certain bar scene and everything else, were actually calling the bars that had booked his band or him as just playing a solo show. We're actually calling these bars and saying, if you book him, we will never play there again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're gonna and some of these guys pull a lot of revenue for these bars. And when we're talking, one band in particular, I know they'll pull in tens of thousands of dollars a night, any place they play. And they were
was that Trapped? Is that the guy from Trapped?
No, this was a local band. This was not a.
Wait, this wasn't a band. This was a band, like someone in the band.
Yeah, someone in the band. This is one person that did this.
I thought it was like a random fan that said that.
No, this was an actual musician. He would play, smaller clubs, things like that. It was cover bands, I believe, mostly. But yeah, but it was so funny. And then I saw this and I'm like, wow. But then the funniest thing about it was when his wife was going online saying that, I can't believe, how dare you try to, ruin our livelihoods for this. And a light bulb went off, because just about 6 months prior to that, she had been online and she had posted somebody about how, hey, here's this guy. He said this, and I don't even think it was anywhere close to being as bad as what her husband had said. Yeah, of course, kind of hard to get there, right? That's kind of a hard one to beat. But she had posted his name, his where he worked. Let's contact, let's get him fired and everything. And I went, oh, I'm gonna remind you of something. And I was like, so I sat back and I went, ooh, that didn't age well at all, did it, honey? And it was then I got every message, I got every, you're a piece of I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm sorry.
We're in a really, really, really dangerous. Oh, so you guys know that we have a relationship with YouTube, and so we get put in these subcultures of people who are using YouTube as a platform, and it's very, if you're a creator, that's what we are. Like it's very cool to rag on YouTube and hate on YouTube and say YouTube is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, they announced this thing where basically anything you say about COVID, okay, is going to get demonetized.
Mm.
You shoot a video, you've got COVID in the title, it's going to get demonetized. So,
like the doctors,
huh?
Like the doctors,
right?
Like so the doctor thing is a big one, right? So that's a separate thing to me because these are experts and they have an opinion and all the rest of it. I'm just. I don't have any background in any of this stuff, but now you're in a situation where you've got a platform that has, 150,000 people and you've been watched 50 million times. And so I get on YouTube and say some craziness like, this isn't real. They're just doing this for vaccinations, yada, yada, yada. So YouTube basically told all the creators, look, if you say anything about COVID, we're just going to demonetize your video, period. And a lot of YouTubers, depending on your business model, that can really, really hurt you. One demonetized video can seriously hurt you, depending on what your model is as a creator. It just so happens that we've kind of created a way to circumvent that whole thing. So whether or not a video gets demonetized, we're okay. But I still won't comment on COVID as far as anything because, and it's not because the video get demonetized. It's because of this whole Dunning-Kruger thing, man. I don't know a damn thing about this stuff, and I don't want to use any influence that I could have.
Right.
Which is strange. It's like these guys listen to music. What does that have to do with infectious disease? But people do, right? So,
well, I tell people, I say, it's what do the doctors say? And I'm just saying, not what does one doctor say? What do the doctors, the group?
What is the consensus?
Exactly. And it's like you said, you've got these two guys that they're doctors. They own urgent care clinics.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and even if they were, completely, even if this was their field of expertise, you don't go about it that way.
Oh yeah.
Right.
If you have something that you like a different hypothesis, you go through the process. You convince the consensus. Exactly. You go through. You convince.
Don't go on freaking YouTube.
Exactly.
And just think out loud. There are points when the guy's like, I'm thinking out loud. I'm like, what?
He did say that.
Yeah.
I'm like, interesting because so I'm a scientist. My wife is also a scientist because I do chemistry. My wife is biology. So we got that video. My wife's mother, my mother-in-law, she sent it to us, right? And I'm looking at this thing, and they're just saying things, and I'm just like, holy crap! Like people are looking at this, and they're probably getting the wrong idea of this. Like, okay, so what frustrated me because they kept saying, well, if you do this and you just extrapolate it to everyone, I'm like, that's not how you do things. Like, that's not science. Like, you can't, like, they make a lot of assumptions in the video about like what you can and can't do. And as someone in the field, like it's just erroneous because people are going to take that. And you take the word of somebody, when you're in academics, people take your word very seriously. So if I say something, I probably should be very careful with what I say because someone else might come later and say, this guy said this. But when you're a doctor, people will take what you say and they will take it very strongly. So like at one point they say, well, we don't need to be in New York City to understand how it works there. And no doctor should ever say anything like that because
yes, you do.
It's crazy. Why would you say that? They're not in New York. They're saying a lot of things and then it gets strangely political. So I'm like pulling my hair out of this video.
New York City is a completely different world. And unless you've been there and really been in the the vast majority of us in New York City don't use public transportation.
Exactly.
Okay. So you got folks packed into the trains like sardines.
Yeah.
In New York, that's the reason everybody's always running around with their hair on fire in New York. It's because you don't make your own schedule. You're always beholden to the public transportation schedule.
Mhm.
And I just remember during rush hour going to school, like you're literally like body to body with people. Like
Mhm.
you can't move, and touching the subway pole and all that. Even before the COVID thing, it was a nightmare touching it because it was always slick. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous to say I don't need to be in the. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Like you're a doctor. Stick to you're. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's the I think it's the immediacy of it, because people, like you said earlier, people like having answers. People like to feel like they know things, and research and things like that. Real science takes time.
It does.
And people don't want to wait. And so two doctors that go on YouTube or that go on wherever, that's who's going to get listened to first.
Yeah.
And once that belief is implanted, it's so hard to get it out.
And then YouTube is in a very precarious situation because they start demonetizing. Oh, like for one example with YouTube. So during the whole Ukraine stuff, the name of the whistleblower was actually a CIA operative guy, right? So he was in the State Department. Now he's in the CIA. So this guy's name gets leaked. So if you're a political commentary channel, if you mention that name in your video, YouTube took down your video. Didn't tell you, didn't do anything. They just took it down immediately, right? People going crazy. Oh my God, YouTube's taking a side politically. It's like, no, dummy. Here's what's happening. Okay. Yeah. When the founding fathers were talking about free speech, they had no conception of what YouTube was or social media is. And how would you like to be the CEO of YouTube and then turn on your TV one day and hear that this guy got assassinated because somebody posted a video on your platform blasting this guy's name all over the place?
It actually shows that they're taking responsibility for the power they have. It's actually refreshing to see that happening nowadays, because people realize the weight that their platform carries.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I don't know how much I agree or disagree with some of the moves that YouTube has made over the last year. And, you know, like I said, when you're in the creator subculture, you know about all of them because it affects your revenue. But I can't be mad at them. What would you do? Would you say, sure, I'm going to let my company be used as a tool by people to spread, lying conspiracy theories that now can spill over into the real world and can cause actual harm to human beings?
You're right.
What would you do?
Yeah, because like I see a lot of people, and I mean, I know you've seen people reference those doctors before.
100%.
Like I see a lot of people that are like, well, here are some people that say these things. So I feel like YouTube, almost to a degree, like they have a responsibility to like make sure that a lot of bad ideas don't get promoted that much, because now you hear those things more and more. Like I was talking to a guy recently, and he was saying actually, I think he was saying that the flu itself is a conspiracy because 80,000 people got the flu in 2018, and then 80,000 people got it in 2018, and then 2019, 24,000 got it. So he was using that to say that the flu itself was a conspiracy. And when I challenged him on it, he talked about the doctors saying that COVID-19 is no better than the flu.
Well, once we have it, once they've heard it from a doctor,
exactly.
It's so bad because I have, you and I have no chance of changing their mind.
Yeah.
And even another doctor might not have a chance of changing their mind.
Yeah.
Because it's
like,
now, two doctors now. Who do I believe? I'm going to believe the one that I've heard first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I take this doctor or this doctor? Do I listen to Dr. Oz?
Yeah. Oh, Dr. Oz. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. That shows you there's no filter on a lot of this stuff, and it's so reckless. But it's also it's also, like I said, it's also good to see that some people do take responsibility for the power that they do wield, and especially like YouTube, if they're willing to say, "Oh, we're taking that down, and we're not going to let y'all just sit here and bloviate about COVID-19 and shoot out your conspiracy theories and get people killed."
Here is what I would do, because YouTube, believe it or not, when they demonetize these videos, you can request a manual review, right? Mm-hmm. So we did a call-in show one time, and this Nazi guy called me, and he was a self-identified Nazi, and we you know, it's a call-in show, so he calls in, and you know, the whole Nazi thing doesn't bother me. I don't care. So we're talking to him and whatever. It actually turned out to be a very good conversation. Well, YouTube demonetized it because once you see Nazi as a word past 2016, forget it.
Mhm.
They're going to demonetize your video, right? So you can actually go to YouTube and say, hey, review this video again personally and see if I was promoting Nazism. So they reviewed it. 24 hours later, they remonetized the video, right? So YouTube has the capability to do that. So what I would have done with those doctors in that situation is what I would have done is I wouldn't have taken it down, because when you take it down, then the conspiracy theorists go, aha.
Yeah.
It creates this confirmation bias, and somebody already ripped the video anyway and put it on another platform. So now they're watching it on Vimeo or whatever. But what I would do on YouTube is I would superimpose this little tape across the video that says, the opinions expressed by these two doctors are the minority view. The majority view is X. And I would just superimpose that on the entire freaking video for the entire time.
Yeah.
Because when you take it down, like I said, I'm not mad at YouTube, because none of us are in the situation that they're in, having that. They have nothing to look back on, you know, with precedents. There's no precedents. There's no case law. They've got to do this on the fly. In the air, and they feel a moral responsibility to not propagate craziness, right? Because now people are dying over this crap. So that's what I would do. I would just superimpose that and say, look, the vast majority of scientists or experts in this field vehemently disagree with these guys. You know, in minute X, they say X, and this is what X scientist says, and yada yada yada. And then hope to God that that's good enough, because when you take it down, that just creates the confirmation bias that YouTube is part of this giant collective of, whatever, to keep
Bill
them
Gates
down.
is doing it. It's all Bill Gates, and he wants to kill us.
Yeah.
Bill
Gates or some other like random person.
Didn't Bill Gates spend like $1 trillion or something like that to get masks to everybody in Seattle?
Right. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they do. They'll figure out a way to make it a bad thing.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like, so if I guess like, where does that argument end though? Because I feel like, could you say that YouTube has a responsibility to like anti-vaxxers or something like that also? Like, where do they have the power to like stop of like, what can you show and what can't? Because there's a lot of dangerous ideas out there. And if you could do that with anti-vaxxers, could you do it with flat earthers or something like that?
Right.
Because there's a lot of dangerous ideas, right?
True. It's true. That's why I said I would never want to be in their situation.
Yeah, it's hard.
But it's very popular as YouTubers to slam on YouTube and yada yada yada. I'm like, are you ridiculous? Like,
yeah, I've seen that a lot. A lot of people.
Well, I mean, I've heard about videos getting demonetized just for cursing. I don't know, like, if that's a thing that still goes on. I mean, but there's definitely a line that you can draw, and it's definitely not with a curse word.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube definitely has a bias to the right, especially in the political commentary sphere. I did a video one time against Candace Owens, and they promoted the hell out of that video. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then I did another video the day after about Ilhan Omar.
Yeah.
And they buried that thing.
Oh, really?
Well, every ad I've seen is, I mean, and I watch about the, I watch very vast different things on YouTube. I'm not sticking to one thing usually, but every ad I see is the Epic Times or how many Trump ads. I haven't seen a single Biden ad. I've seen I don't know how many Trump ads.
Yeah.
So it's definitely YouTube definitely enjoys their the right side of the equation.
I got a lot of Bloomberg ads at one point.
Well, you remember that with Bloomberg. Is every you couldn't go anywhere without.
That's almost the same as a Trump ad.
Yeah, he was everywhere.
Almost as good as a Trump ad, because we know Bloomberg wasn't doing anything.
He really wasn't.
You know what was funny? You know what was really ironic was you have all these left-wing YouTubers are like, I hate Bloomberg. He's buying the election. Da, 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 da. All of us made hella money during the Bloomberg situation. All of us are getting rich off of Bloomberg.
Yeah.
It's like I've been talking to other YouTubers. I'm like, yo, you get this Bloomberg money? They're like, yeah, man. Fuck him. I hate him, but yeah, let's take
Bloomberg
the money. There was a whole bunch of Bloomberg ads on our videos. I'm like, sorry. He's like, what is going? I'm like, we can't control, who.
Go down to the Mercedes dealership. Bloomberg, yep, Bloomberg.
Yeah, just eat the steak, babe. Just eat the
Bloomberg
steak.
paid for my rent.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like when that Trump money came, my wife, she texted me. She was like, "We got that Trump money." I was just like,
That's not Trump's money. I thought
maybe it's not that.
wasn't he wanted his name on the check? It's like we still know it's not your money.
Yeah,
I know.
Did you see that person that was just like, I forget, they were saying, I think it was like a meme, but they were saying like, it's a good thing we didn't have Obama because he wasn't rich enough to give everyone $1,000. I was like, what?
We are doomed.
Yeah.
This is why other countries laugh at us.
All right, let's get into where we disagree because I got a half hour left, guys.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's about exactly where I wanted to wrap up too. So that's perfect.
Cool.
But we should do this more often. This is
Absolutely.
This is a pretty good.
I'm quite bored not in school, so you can
just if you're just jumping on and seeing the video, I'm a Christian. I'm a center right leaning Christian, I guess, as you could call me. And then Jermaine's also a Christian.
Yes. Pause. Why'd you pause?
How would you identify it, Jermaine?
You just pause and smile. Like Jermaine's also a Christian. I am a oh wait, I didn't even realize that you said I'm a Christian. I didn't know.
Yeah, I said you were a Christian.
I didn't know. I didn't get that. I'm like, oh no. So I am. I guess, man, I am a agnostic atheist, and I am progressive left, so pretty left. And agnostic, for people that don't know, is this like, I think the concept of what you define to be God to be a meaningless label. So usually I just ask people what they do believe and why. So
that was agnostic as an IG, right?
IGNOSTIC.
I'm John. This is my channel here. So hopefully, if you see that, please like and subscribe. I identify as an atheist, but there with all the different definitions going around, and everybody wants to have the argument about, well, does that mean this or does this mean that? I just simply go, I'm not a theist, and we can go from there. But other than that, Vin has been one of the guys I've met on the Prayer Works Facebook page. Possibly one of the.
Which this moment, does anybody know who owns that channel? Is it an atheist?
I don't know. I hear so many things, man.
It's probably Trump.
I don't know. Yeah. I just leave it alone.
I got made an admin of the Prayer Works thing for some strange reason.
Did you really?
What?
Yeah. Like, I'm looking at it right now. Like it says, like 6 of your friends want to join, but you have to approve them.
What? No way! I thought there was one admin that just kind of I thought they might have died like years ago and just
use it for good, Vin. Use it for good.
You have so much power now.
I don't even do that. I don't even add people to that.
Well, there's like over 500,000 people on that page.
Yeah.
I don't know. I leave everything alone unless it directly addresses atheists. I just leave it alone. Because when people need, like when they say they need prayer, I'm like, all right, man, do your thing. Go with Christ.
They made it so someone actually is like running that page. Then that's amazing to me.
Yeah, and I don't know how I ended up with veto power on that because I'm looking at it right now. Like 7 of my friends want to join, and it says, you have to approve their whatever.
Oh man,
I'm not approving nothing.
I
will not be held responsible to your exposure to the forum.
Make rules and stuff.
I thought, you could go in there and just start. Oh man. You can mess up a lot of people right now.
Jermaine, did we meet in Prayer Works, or was it the Atheist vs. Christians debate one?
Yeah, I think it was the Atheist vs. Christians debate page.
Yeah.
I'm in a lot of them. I don't know. People add me in a lot of them. I do like a monthly cleaning out every now and then, but I'm in a lot of groups.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony. John Anthony, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. I can't believe that page actually had someone watching out for it. I thought that was kind of just a free for all at this point.
Thought it was Zuck's pet project.
It's a Wild West. Yeah, I know. It's probably a CIA thing.
I thought I literally thought someone had started that page one day and then got kidnapped or something and set it to auto, or
You just let it run.
I thought it just kind of become an animal of its own kind of thing, and just kind of it's on just some kind of cycle where it just adds people whenever they request it, and then you just go about your day, and then it just see where it goes, because that thing doesn't look like, I've never seen an admin on there ever.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know how it's lasted long, because I'm on a page, the Real Debate page, and that has about 30,000 members. But like we are always on it, like just making sure stuff happens and removing people, banning them, all this other stuff on there. So I thought the pages required work. I don't know how they get theirs to happen with no work.
Hey, it's amazing, but yeah, it's I see. That's where I found the two of y'all. That's where I came across both of you. Actually, that's where I met both of you, and both of you have like really been amazing as far as I'm concerned. Y'all really love having the discussions. Y'all are really what do I want to say? I'm drawing a blank.
That awesome beard.
Both very eloquent. Y'all both awesome. Y'all both actually very charitable in the discussions. Y'all don't try to just go in and no, you're wrong, screw you. So
yeah, and the funny thing is, I've had wars with both of these gentlemen.
Oh yeah, we've absolutely both been like, nope, Vin,
pretty
wars. Shut up,
you're on crack, you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's like the Jet Li quote in The Matrix. He says, you don't really know your brother until you fought him or something like that. And so that's usually the relationship people have with me. There's like a little hazing period.
Yeah.
I tell people I've some of my best friends have told me, like, when I first met you, I thought you were this biggest asshole I've ever met. I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted you to think. That's what I was going for. That's exactly it. Thank you.
Yeah. About once every couple of months, I'm just like, I am pissed at Vin. And my wife's just like, is it that time of month? All right. Yeah. You'll be okay. Yeah, you'll be cool.
Yeah, you meet a lot of people online, but there's like a small cadre of people that like end up in your circle. I was like, I'm never gonna talk to Jermaine again. She's like, yeah, you'll be talking to him next week, you dumb.
Yeah, that would be good. You start talking.
The girls know us.
I can't resist.
Oh, I love it. I'm always guaranteed. I pull up Facebook and I'm always guaranteed to see Vin pissing somebody off.
Yeah, I get all his videos, so I see him all the time. I'm just like, all right, I guess I'll listen to it.
I get to. Well, it's funny. Like sometimes when like somebody from that forum finds the channel, so I'll do like a live stream. And they're like, "Vin, you son of a bitch," and people are like, "How dare you say that to our favorite YouTuber?" But then it's because they met me on PrayerWorks, so they don't have any like concept that you're a YouTuber. They're just, it's that idiot from PrayerWorks. What are you doing on YouTube?
Yeah.
So it's fun though. It's all good fun.
Yeah. Well, I find myself agreeing more with Christians in it. Well, not like I agree with their position, but I find myself being more agreeable than a lot of atheists because I'm moving away from just the classic, why does God exist? And I'm moving more into like, well, what are your reasons? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about epistemology, different things like that. So it's not, I find just, if I just go to Vin every day, I'm just like, okay, like prove God, it's boring to me. So I'm moving away from those conversations. So I'm having a little more cordial talks with people who have different beliefs than me.
I'm actually trying lately. I feel the same way. It's kind of getting boring to just kind of go, yeah, prove it. No evidence. Mm-hmm. It's I'm actually going to looking into and working on the arguments for why there can't be a God.
Yeah.
Or why God does not, because
that's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm not there yet. Obviously I have a couple of things that I think may go down a road that will lead to something, but at this point it's saying that, because a lot of people want to get into the idea of, okay, if you say you're an atheist, then you have to take this position. That's the philosophical definition and all that, which is fine. They can have that. They can use it that way if they want to. I just
talking about the Steve McRae stuff.
Oh yes, Steve, and he makes some good arguments for why that is, and it comes down to a matter of, this is how I'm using the term.
Yeah.
And if you say this is how I'm using the term and this is why I'm using it this way, it doesn't matter what label. I can say I'm are you a Christian? No, I'm a dog, and here's what I mean by dog. Mm-hmm. So now for the rest of the I say dog means non-theist. It's really confusing, but The substance comes in at you explaining what your position actually is, not just slapping a label on it and then someone saying, "No, you said this, so you can't mean this."
Mhm.
Well, I can. You just don't understand. But now that I've explained it to you, you do. So now we can move on.
Yeah.
My introduction to atheism was Bertrand Russell, and I was reading a lot of Russell during my failed apostasy attempt. And because the reason I liked Russell so much was because he wrestled a lot with a lot of things, and he was able to say very, very clearly some very, very controversial things. But he was like, "Look, this is a ramification here on this topic or that topic." And obviously, he's one guy. Obviously, Nietzsche's another big guy. That so I was like immersing myself in a lot of this classical literature, when I was trying to get away from Christianity. And so I found Bertrand Russell to be very, very compelling and very I adopted a lot of his I wouldn't say I adopted his worldview, but I definitely adopted his rhetoric because I figured it would scare my mom. And it did. She's throwing the holy water at me and all the rest of it because Bertrand Russell says some pretty crazy things, But his essay, "The Free Man's Worship," is probably the best piece of literature I've ever read in the Western world, which, I've done a lot of Western studies, Shakespeare and all that, but "The Free Man's Worship" is a pretty crazy essay. And it just shows to me how he said so much using so little words that I'm always fascinated by anybody that can pull that off. But so Bertrand Russell was my introduction to atheism, which led me down to the Nietzsche and then the other stuff. But what was your guys's? Because I know, Jermaine, you kind of grew up in an evangelical home, didn't you?
Yeah, I grew up. So my parents are from South America. I'm actually the first person in my family born here, and they are fundamentalist Christians, and they're pretty high fundamentalist Christians. And they actually, they wanted me to become a pastor. They own like a bunch of churches like in South America, and they have like a couple churches here. I live in Virginia. So when I grew up, I was gonna like lead like a church. So I went to college to actually study. Well, at one point I wanted to do something with theology, but then I was actually way more interested in math and science. So I was just like, well, whenever I become a pastor, I'm going to like learn about like the world and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to be like a pastor that just says how the world works. And I'm going to study God's creation. And yeah, my introduction to atheism was not like, I didn't know what they were. I just heard of just like, my parents were just like, well, they're just godless heathens. And like, I don't know. I just throughout college, I like realized that like, God, it just didn't become like a term that I needed to like study engineering or study chemistry or anything like that. So I just slowly became not a Christian, and I just became irreligious. And then I realized like, wait, that's just essentially atheist. So I think I just heard things about it, but then I discovered for myself, it's just like, no, they're just regular people like everyone else. So yeah, I mean, that was how it was for me. Oh, I also joined a cult. So, it's probably one of not a Christian too. Yeah. But I met my wife, so good.
You joined a cult? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I joined a cult. Yeah, I was in a cult for like, oh my gosh, probably like 8 years. Yeah.
Wait,
what cult was it? What was this?
Whoa! Were you being serious?
No, there's no joke. So I was in this like non-denominational cult in college, and I actually was like doing like a lot of things. Like I was like leading it and stuff like that, and I was like leading like part of like a campus ministry and different things. And they were like this super controlling Christian cult. They were like, this is who you have to hang out with. Like, this is the kind of relationships you have to have. You have to tell your family that they're not real Christians. Like, you have to have like, somebody in your life that tells you have to like tell your sins to somebody who you don't even know. And I even helped convince other people to join the cult and stuff like that. So yeah, I was in a cult for a while. And like, I see a lot of my friends that are still in there right now. And like, they would never say they're in a cult. And I don't even tell them they're in a cult. I'm just like, okay, you guys are doing your Christian thing. That's fine. But yeah, no, we were in there for probably, we left in 2017, I think.
You and your wife?
Hmm?
When you say we, you mean you and your wife?
Yeah, I met her in the cult. Yes. So I met her like my first day of college. We like joined it because like that's like a time where like a lot of people, you don't know anyone. So the first thing you're gonna do is like join like a group of people. You're just like, it's fun. We're Christians, totally cool. But nope, totally culty, man. Totally culty. I
Y'all
mean,
both up at the same time?
yeah, I started earlier than her. And then she came in like a couple weeks later. And we actually wanted to leave after we got married. But one of the things they said to us was like, well, if you leave, then you kind of got to break up with her. And I was just like, well, I don't want to leave my wife. So that was one of the reasons why we stayed in there for so long, because it was just like, if we leave, then we got to break up. And I love my wife. So I'm just like, I'm going to stay in there. So, I mean, we stayed in there for like, so we got married in 2012. So about
what was the logic
of what?
about? So they said if you both leave, that you have to divorce her.
Not necessarily that we divorce her, but you're going to get divorced. So like it's more like a scare tactic, just like if you leave, then like your marriage is going to be the worst. And if I leave and she stays, then we got to break up. And if she leaves and I stay, then we got to break up. So they more use like, you know, like religion against us of just saying like you have to do this because God says it. And they would be like, this person is like, if this person's telling you something, then it's the same thing as God telling you. So a lot of times people tell us something and be like, well, we can't question it because God said it. So, yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting, man. I mean, I don't have anywhere near as interesting a story as that.
I'm sorry, John, because I'm really fascinated by this.
Yeah.
How did you guys finally decide, yo, we're out of here, period?
Let's see. So I think,
all of them was in a cult. They were in a cult, Mike. You know, the controlling stuff, and then they tried to leave, and they said, "You're going to get divorced if we're not there to control."
I had a feeling there must have been something like that.
That's crazy. Go on. How did you escape?
So we left because so like ever since we were like, you know, even before we met and stuff, like we questioned a lot of things. Like I told my family when I first came, and I was just like, "Oh, this is what the Bible says," and they were just like, "Yeah, that's not true." And then I like basically told them off. So a lot of people throughout my life have been just like, "Dude, like you're kind of in a cult. Like you're in like this weird controlling group and stuff like that." But then over time, like things just built up. Like oh no, you know what? No, I remember the moment when I realized this might be not for me because so Erin got me pissed off because, you know, regular married stuff. And she got me pissed off one day. And I talked to like a guy in my church and I was just like, bro, like what am I going to do here? And then he told me, and I'll never forget this. He was just like, bro, sometimes you just got to discipline your wife, man. And I was just like, whoa,
wow.
Nope, not doing that. And
wow.
Nope.
That sounds like the Quran.
I told Erin that, and like she was just like, she was questioning it too. But then we didn't live like it, you know? So we were just like, I don't think this is something we got to do. And then like I started a business, fitness business, and it wasn't doing too great and stuff like that. And she was having a lot of problems with me. So she asked like a woman in the church, and she was like, well, what do I do? And then she told her like, it's better to like be with your husband, even if he's like really messing up and stuff like that, because you got to be submissive and you got to listen to everything he says. And she was just like, I can't do that. And I was
hearing this? We won't have any fights anymore.
I'm not joining that.
Hey, what's the address for this establishment?
They're worldwide.
What's it called?
They're like a Church of Christ, but they're like a sect of it. So like they're like super like fundy, non-denominational. But
you had to be baptized in their denomination and all that.
You did.
Yeah, okay. I know those people.
Someone said they went to a Church of Christ and they were there for, they weren't a Christian or anything, but they were in a Church of Christ for something, and they in the pew or whatever, and they saw they have pamphlets, I guess, and one of the first pamphlets they saw, his wife picked it up and showed it to him, is why the Church of Christ is not a cult.
Yeah.
if that's if you have to even publish a document like that, that's because you're a freaking cult.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because like, so one of the first times I was there, like I was studying the Bible, because they make you study the Bible before you even join. They don't let you just join if you're a Christian, because I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm a Christian. They were like, you're not a real Christian. But one of the things they said to me, they were just like, well, they were like, a lot of people are going to say you're a cult. And I was just like, huh, that's weird. And they were just like, but if you look at the first century church, like Jesus did all this stuff. No, like they were like, the disciples did all these things in Acts, and they were having food together and like sharing everything they had. They were like, you'd probably think that was a cult too, right? So cults aren't a bad thing. And I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, no, they're a cult, but they're fine. So like they trick you into thinking like
they're a cult, but that's fine.
So they trick you. You think like, no, cult is fine. Like,
Yeah,
everyone-
cult, yeah, the word cult's gotten a bad rap over the years. We're trying to bring it back. we're taking that word back.
yeah,
Bringing
that's
culty back.
so
Bringing
yeah,
culty back.
Rehabilitate that one.
it was a lot of weird things like that. And then they had this one thing where you had to like tell your sins to people. So it'd be like Vince studying the Bible with me, and I'm just like, bro, you got to talk about your sins. But he's never met me. Like, this is literally the first time I've talked to him, and I'm just like, let's talk about like really weird stuff like in your past. And then like I told like some atheists later, and they were just like, dude, that sounds just wrong. Like,
No,
it's
that's
like a little.
that's an obvious tactic because it's an obvious way to get dirt on people.
Yeah.
That's all that is. That's like so obvious. That's like, this is how I'm going to get leverage over people.
Yeah. Then now they know your personal things, and you don't want to leave now because you're just like, oh, these people, they know me.
You leave, we're going to start talking stuff. We're going to start letting people know.
Yeah. So it was. Woo-wee. I think the worst part was realizing how much of my time I spent on that thing, and like I could have been doing so much more. Like right now, I'm getting my master's, but I'm just like, I could have gotten a master's a long time. Like a long time ago, if I hadn't been playing church with people. Like, that's crazy.
Wow.
The thing about it is, like, honestly, I think, like, talking to, like, Vin and a lot of Christians and stuff like that, like, I'm in the position now where I'm like, if I hadn't joined that cult, I might still be a Christian. I just wouldn't be, like, a fundamentalist, crazy Christian, but I might still be a Christian. Because, like, Vin has a lot of positions that I'm just like, okay, I didn't know that Christians could believe that. Like you're cool with like LGBT and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I didn't know that you could be cool with LGBT. I didn't know that you could believe in evolution. But from what they say, you would think that the only right position to have is this one. So I think if it hadn't been for that one, I might be Christian. I think just my experience was so bad. I'm just like, done, you know?
Well, that's one of those things where, you know, that passage in the Old Testament where God says, you guys just close the door of the temple and be done with it. Because they were taking the religion and turning it into, well, in the Old Testament, a lot of times it was a money thing. They were fleecing the people with the money. And then there was a lot of control, and there was actually some domestic violence too happening. And so by the end of the text, God just said, just close the doors of the temple. We're done. And so that says to me that there's some forms of religion that are so toxic that it'd be better to just shut the whole thing down.
Yeah.
Be done with it.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, American versions of Christianity have been extremely destructive. And like one real stark example to me was in Maine. You know, everything is like slowed down by 2 years. So the gay marriage stuff didn't hit Maine until like 2 years after everybody else did. And I remember very distinctly hearing this knock on my door. And I opened the door, and it's this kid with his dad. And he says, I'd never seen this kid before. And he's got this little pamphlet thingy and a little survey thingy. I said, what's up, man? What's going on? He's like, yeah, so we're Christians from this church, da-da-da-da-da. And he basically said, I want you to sign this petition against gay marriage. And I said, well, how about you tell me the gospel, right? Because we're Christians, like we're not political actors first. We're, you know, we've got this story that we're sharing with everybody. The kid couldn't do it. So I looked at the dad. I basically said, what the hell are you doing? Why is it so important to not have these gay kids get married or whatever? But your son can't even tell me the basics of our faith. Like, this is upside down. Why are you knocking on doors trying to tell me to tell these gay people not to get married when our faith is supposed to be first and foremost about Jesus, and the kid can't tell me a thing about Jesus, but he can tell me he doesn't want gay people to get married? Well, obviously that conversation didn't go well. Guy basically said I wasn't a real Christian, and then off he went.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that, and I was pretty much alone at that point in that mindset, because again, this is Maine. Like, no disrespect to Maine, but I was pretty much by myself in that mentality at the time around the evangelicals that I was around, you know, because there are liberal forms of evangelicalism, but I never found that type of tribe. So I told you that story. I remember that. We weren't together at the time. I told her the story. She was judging me hardcore. She was like, She goes, "Did you sign the petition?" I said, "No, I didn't sign the petition."
Yeah.
She was judging me hardcore though, because she grew up very, very, very traditionalist, fundamentalist, Christian, anti-vaxxer, 9/11 truther, that type of.
Oh man.
No, my parents weren't anti-vaxxers.
Oh, it's just you and your sister?
Yeah.
Ooh.
How did you and your sister become anti-vaxxers?
My parents didn't vaccinate us because my father was self-employed, so he didn't have
the insurance.
Health insurance. Yeah. So, and we came up just fine. So I think that kind of, you know what I mean?
That hurts my scientist soul.
But that's why we need Medicare for all, right?
Yeah.
The guy couldn't even vaccinate his kids because he was, he's a private business owner.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford it.
Yeah, it's the story of America. Can't afford it, so you're just like, hopefully we'll be fine.
We'll just die by the thousands.
Yeah, nah.
I know the feeling. When I was a musician, if that's something that happened to me, I would have been screwed. I didn't have insurance or anything because they don't have that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing to me about like the evangelicals constantly talk about being pro-life, and then you bring these numbers. You say, "Do you know these people are dying because of diabetic complications that we could easily fix if we had universal health care?" Mm-hmm. And in my naivete, when I found this out, because I didn't know how many people were dying a year because of our lack of universal health care for real basic stuff. I grew up with watching my stepdad take the little poke for the diabetes and all that, his blood sugar and all this stuff. And he's just fine. He's alive to this day. He's like 75. He's doing his thing. Very healthy guy. So when I start hearing these stories about these 28-year-olds that are just dying because they age out of their mother's insurance, because ACA allowed you to stay on your parents' insurance till 27. Mm-hmm. Well, 28 comes around, all these kids start dying because of diabetic complications because they start rationing their insulin. And when I first heard that, I was wrecked. And so I started sharing this with a couple of my evangelical friends because we're all pro-life, right? And so when you hear thousands of kids are dying in the prime of their life, I mean, 28, that's like and there's this callous, like, well, that's too bad. And that's socialism. Where are we going to find the money? I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away by the response from, not right wingers, but from evangelical right wingers. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, we're pro-life. Like, what are you doing? And
I'll be A-okay with like bombing other countries. Because that does.
Yeah, they bomb the hell out of these people, kill these people by the millions. I had a guy tell me, "You think all those people were innocent?" I said, "Yes, that's why they're called civilians, dummy. That's what it means to be a civilian. It means you're non-combatant." Yes.
Yeah. They're not innocent. Where that money comes from. They're just going to be like, "Where's the money for these other things coming from?" Can't get it wrong, but we can find money for Moabs.
It's been a rough couple of years. I'm not going to lie to you. There's a lot of disillusionment as far as. Even up to like a year and a half ago, I think I had some real naive, the criticisms that get levied against us, especially if you're pro-life on the abortion thing. People start saying you're pro-birth. I had never heard that phrase before. I'm like, what are they talking about? Then they explained the pro-birth thing to me. I'm like, no, that's not true. But then I thought about, well, wait a second. Evangelicals are always pro-war.
Mm-hmm. Pro-death penalty.
Pro-death penalty. Ted Cruz was talking about carpet bombing and making sand glow, and all the evangelicals were clapping, and then this healthcare stuff now. I really was ignorant about the healthcare situation until Bernie came along. And when Bernie came along, at least in my consciousness, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, universal healthcare, that sounds good, and people were like, oh, that's socialism. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't care. I'm not married to capitalism. Who cares?
Yeah.
But then I started seeing all the people dying every single year. And I was like, I'm like, guys, this? People are dying. Because I was like, oh, they're going to change their position once they realize that all these people are dying. And it was just this, well, the kid should have rationed his money better. That's his responsibility. Yeah. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Then they're not very pro-life then.
Whoa. And then it becomes they're pro money. They're like, do you realize what's going to happen to you tax wise if this thing goes through?
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's amazing because what you'll get into is like I've gone down that rabbit hole of people before, and they say, well, you should have rationed your money better. As well, he didn't choose to get diabetes. it's not something
Correct.
you're not. It's not something. It's because they'll always want to say, well, what then? Are we supposed to pay for drug addicts to have
rehab,
and or we're supposed to pay for someone who eats cheeseburgers their whole life for their bypass surgery? And well, yes, we are, because in the same way that I'm supposed to pay for the firehouse and my house never burns down.
Right.
In the same way that I'm supposed to pay for the police force, but I never have anybody break into my home and have to call them.
Right. Like, I can't say I'm not a criminal, so we shouldn't have a police force.
Yeah.
Or
right.
like somebody's house is burning down.
Yeah, I've never been robbed. We don't need a police force. I've never been murdered.
Yeah. Like little Timmy, starts playing around with the stove, and now there's a 5-alarm fire. Like, you're not supposed to say, hey, you should take personal responsibility for little Timmy. It's not my job to have to finance the fire department.
You should have had a fire. You should have had a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, you should have had a fire. You shouldn't have had a dumb kid. It's just like this weird, like, but it's just very strange. That's actually, I've learned so many things, like, not only being in the atheist forum, but also just, the channel and stuff, because most of our constituency is all, like, it's almost 95% atheist. And so like, for example, one of our folks recently died from COVID-19. So not one of our folks. So one of our folks works with somebody that died of COVID-19. And so they just said, hey, could you just spread the word about this GoFundMe thing for this guy? So they set up a GoFundMe for this guy. And we launched that program, like a week ago?
I'm sorry, just noticed I have information about Peter, so I'm not listening.
Yeah, I try to keep it from you.
Why would you do that?
Because I wanted you to have a good day.
That's not right. Don't do that to me.
We'll do it next time. Sorry. So there's a guy that's from our channel that we haven't heard from in like 2 weeks, and he's on a ventilator. So it's not looking good. But anyway, we had this other guy, and so a week ago we launched that campaign, and we raised $2,000 for this guy from our atheist community. Mm-hmm. So this is a guy who they've never met. Okay. And people got together and are putting out to help this guy. And that's happened on a multitude of occasions. We saved somebody's house. Like, it's crazy, like the stuff that folks in our community are doing, and they're mostly atheist. And like, right before.
Do you think that, like, there's a correlation there between, like, when someone becomes an atheist and kind of takes on this position that there's no God watching out for us, so we have to do it ourselves?
I'm not. Well, it's something Tori and I talk about a ton, and the reason is because we were part of this, like, really grinded out gutter level ministry where we lived. And that's where, we worked with, you guys have heard me talk about, working with sex workers or working with sexual assault victims, because they were, downtown, in a downtown area, extremely poor. A lot of these people are actually homeless. One of our folks actually died from COVID. Like, just like one of the few people in Maine that died from COVID was one of our folks, because they're very vulnerable. They're homeless. They kind of have to congregate together in order to survive out there. Mm. So we had, but getting people here's why I brought that up. Getting people to part with their money to help in the cause was extremely difficult. Like, the lead guy in our group, the guy that set everything up, spent the most money on, like, it was just like almost impossible to get these people to part with any of their money to help the cause. And the lead guy didn't want to do the whole I'm going to ask for money type of thing. His thing was, hey, people are going to see my example and people are going to follow along. And so I'm not going to ask anybody for money. So they never did the collection plate thing. They never even talked about money. But it was, when you hear so-and-so's in trouble, people wouldn't jump and start throwing cash at the issue. So then we get out of that context and, we start the channel or whatever, and we find somebody's in trouble. So we just throw this thing up there, and then it's amazing. People from all over, like, yeah, we'll help. And it's like, it was a crazy contrast between, I got to tell you, and I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, why are these people so quick to help? I mean, I'm talking about, like, not only money, but we had a girl that because everybody knows our pro-life stance. But I think whether or not you are pro-life, everybody can say, well, if there's a woman in trouble, she wants to keep the baby, we should help her. So we did that. We did a baby registry. People gave all types of craziness to this girl that they've never even met. And a lot of these guys are pro-choice who hate my guts whenever I talk about pro-life. But on that particular situation, we all banded together and helped this girl out. And that's happened over and over and over. I don't know. I think we've been able to collectively. It's probably somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000. Would you say?
I think it's more.
It's probably more than that. But that's coming from our community.
Yeah.
Where we've been able to do that in just 2 years. It's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
And,
Yeah.
And it's 95% atheist. I mean,
Think about the baby showers that we've thrown, and people have sent stuff for that. Like, there's been so many things.
Yeah.
So I think I would say it's probably between 10 and 15.
Yeah, it's probably closer to that, but I wanted to lowball it. But yeah.
But I really do. Like I said, I asked you that, definitely not as any kind of thing, as any kind of question, because that's an awesome thing. But I said I have seen more of an inclination of people once they become atheist or leave religion or something like that. They're not as quick to go on and say, oh, I'm praying for you, or of course, because they don't see any utility in that.
Right.
But what the people that because a lot of the people, they do want to help, and I believe they think that they do believe prayer actually does work. Yeah. They believe that there's a chance that, hey, if my prayer might help some way.
Yeah.
So when you're an atheist and you're searching for a way to help, that doesn't come. You don't even consider that as an option. Yeah. It's kind of you just go straight to, okay, what can I do?
Yeah, what actually things can I do to help the situation?
I think that there's a lot of, okay. So for example, in 1 John, and John says, hey, if you see your brother and he's cold and he's naked or whatever, what good is it to you to say, hey, brother, God bless you, be well fed? John says, you need to give him a cloak or give him something to eat. Stop loving. He says, dear brothers, let's not love in words and talk only, but also with action. And so the point is that from the New Testament perspective, there's supposed to be both, right? Like, you're supposed to pray, and then you're supposed to act in the world the way Jesus would act.
Do you think prayer is an action? Or do you think that's separate?
No, I think prayer isn't. So I believe in a spiritual world and a physical world, and I believe that those worlds are connected. And there's ways to access both. But the point is that to me, there is a certain sort of, here's the difference between atheists and Christians to me in regard to this particular topic, right? So you can use prayer as an excuse to not act in the real world or in the physical world, right? So what happens is, like, here's an example, Jermaine, you might be familiar with this. The Bible says you're not supposed to gossip, right? So you cannot talk bad about your brother behind his back where he can't defend himself. That's gossip, right? So here's what'll happen. You'll be in a little Bible study, and then after the Bible study, there's usually time for prayer. So now we go around the room. So now I want to gossip about Jermaine. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, guys, we really need to pray for Jermaine.
You're right.
Because yesterday I saw him in a car, and the woman was black, and I know he's with a white woman. So we need to pray for Jermaine for his sex lust issues. So now I wanted to gossip about Jermaine. I wanted to talk that shit, right? So I was able to successfully gossip about Jermaine, but it's okay because I put it in the context of prayer. You see what I'm saying? And so somebody guns down 50 Americans, right? Freaking horrible day. You wake up and you hear 50 of your brothers and sisters are dead, right? So now we're looking at like, well, we got to do something about these guns. We got to do something about these high-powered automatic weapons, right? Like the guy in Las Vegas, he set up and he was mowing people down, right? But what do? We don't want to give up our guns. So what do we say? Thoughts and prayers, right? So like prayer becomes this sort of corrupted thing where I can use it to circumvent my responsibility in the physical world.
That's what I was talking about. It's like it does seem that that's kind of taken the place of actually. That's why I say I separate it from being an action, because it seems that that's taken the place of action.
I agree. And the biblical model is, and it's the same thing with, Islam. There's a phrase that says, trust Allah and tie your camel, right? Like, trust Allah to keep your camel. But at the same time, in the physical world, use your brain, tie the camel, and go on with your business. And of course, if I was an unbeliever, I'd say, yeah, man, sure. The tie your camel thing is going to be the difference as to whether or not your camel is there, right? When you come home. But yeah, sure. If you want to trust Allah and pray to Allah, fine, but do something in the real world. If I was an unbeliever, that's what I would say. And I think you're right there, John, is like, if I'm an atheist and I don't believe that there's a metaphysical or supernatural world where prayer is effective, and I see somebody's in trouble, then I'm gonna just do that action, right? Whereas if I'm selfish as a Christian, if I'm selfish, I'm not just gonna say, no, I'm not giving my money to that situation. I'm just gonna say, oh, I'll pray for that person.
Yeah.
So now I can use the religious excuse when in reality I'm just very, very selfish. Now I get to use a religious excuse not to, whatever. And I think obviously atheists don't have that excuse. They'll just stay quiet and say, I don't have it this month or whatever. But the other ones who are really affected by it, they're going to give. And these people, I'm talking about, somebody gave $200 to this cause, like $200 in a situation where we're in a recession. Half these people aren't even working, and they're still willing to do that for somebody. It's mind-boggling. But that's the biggest thing I've learned about atheists since, the last 2 years is I've had so many of them say, look, man, I grew up in a religious environment, and if I would have caught you 3 years ago, I'd probably still be religious, but I couldn't rock with the anti-gay stuff, or I couldn't rock with the child abuse stuff, or I couldn't rock with the whole suppression of women stuff, and I couldn't do it. But there's a lot of elements in Jesus's philosophy that they still held on to, which is obvious because they're so willing to be generous and help people. And a lot of these people don't even get any notoriety for it because it's a lot of times they're giving, anonymously. Nobody knows who they are. So it's that's definitely been a mind-blowing experience for me.
That's awesome. Well, guys, thank y'all so much. I'm gonna have to cut it. I'm gonna have to cut a little bit short.
Word.
But I appreciate y'all hanging in. It's been like over an hour and a half now. Thank y'all so much. I definitely want to do this again if y'all are up for it.
Yeah, let me know anytime.
And this has been great. This went a lot better than I thought it would. I thought I was going to be messing everything up.
Yeah.
But I still
shave next time.
What's that?
I said I'll try to shave next time.
Hey, come as you are, man. We're good.
I don't know. Ben's beard though. I don't know. I might have to keep it going like his.
Next time we're gonna
get exactly. Next time I promised. I feel like I let everybody down. I promised everybody like a battle royale, but I didn't deliver. Guys, I will. If you're watching this, I will try to deliver next time. I'll try to get some people who will get bloody with it, and we'll make it happen.
Find me someone that says evolution isn't true or flat Earth something. I'll debate that guy.
Oh man, that's okay. I'm sure it won't be hard to find.
Oh, it's so easy. Flat Earth.
I've got this atheist friend that's going for his master's in biology or whatever. And so I'll see some meme by one of my Christian people like, oh, the evolutionists never thought of this. So I'm like, hey, Alec, da 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 da, and he'll be like, oh no, there is an article published 1950. like he was like, so I'll go and message the guy like, that's not true what you posted.
Hey, if y'all want to get on here, and if you come across somebody, and please bring y'all come have that conversation on my channel. I need the help. I need the help. I'm trying to get subscribers. So let's bring them my way. I'll let y'all come on here and y'all can hash it out by all means. Just message me. Let me know. Y'all got my contact info. So get up with me.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Thank y'all so much.
All right, man.
See y'all next time. Guys. Thank y'all for watching.
Hey, Jermaine, you watching that Jordan documentary?
I didn't even know there was one.
Oh my gosh.
Dude,
I'm taking your black card away. Jermaine's not black
You might have
anymore.
to take it. You might have to
He's
take
not
it away.
black anymore. That's it. It's
Dude,
over.
yeah.
No, you gotta give him a pass. He was in that cult. They didn't let him know about
Yeah, he was
that
in the
stuff.
cult. It's all right.
Now you know something about me. Now you like you're closer now.
Yeah. Hey, I'll promo this, John, for sure. And,
Thank you so much.
I'll try to. I'll shoot you some ideas of some shows that.
I'm actually gonna go ahead and pop for the when I get stimulated, when Trump sends me his money, I'm gonna
get stimulated.
Yeah, I'm gonna get stimulated. I'm gonna actually pop for the upgraded version of StreamYard so I can make it look a little nicer. And we're gonna try to integrate that with Streamlabs, and I'll see what I can do.
Look at this. Look at this format.
Yeah, it's nice.
We connected that to YouTube and live stream. We'd be able to do that. People would be able to call in on the firesides.
Oh, what program is that?
The Streamlabs. Wasn't that the one that we had?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the one that you were trying out?
That's our thing. That's Elgato. Elgato is.
Do you use Elgato?
No, I don't know what that is.
We were connecting it with Streamlabs at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I've got a lot of work to do. But this was my first attempt, so it's gonna get better from here. It can't get any worse than this. So that's so. But I'll see y'all next time, guys. Thank y'all.
Bro. Anytime. Later.
Peace out.